all banks are closed. You wake up in the morning, and that's the first headline you see on TV. In shock, your hand reaches for your phone. You try to open your banking app. But the result is the same. Loading. Loading. Crash. You rush outside, and on the first ATM you see, there's a white paper taped on it. Out of service. Markets are open, stores are selling, but the cashier says, cash only. Cards aren't working. Suddenly, every payment has to be made in cash. At first, you think it's just a temporary glitch. But something feels wrong in the streets. Supermarkets are more crowded than ever. Everyone's waiting in line, holding their last few banknotes tightly. And then it hits you. All those numbers you saw in your bank account, your balance. They were just digital reflections. Now that the screen is dark, it feels like all your money has disappeared with it. You probably think this could only happen in movies, but unfortunately, it's not fiction. This has happened many times throughout history, even in so-called modern countries. When something like this occurs, life doesn't slow down. It stops. The rules of the game change overnight. The table is reset because balance no longer exists. In a single night, who's rich and who's poor becomes unclear. Let's go back to 2001, to the beautiful South American country of Argentina. After years of poor governance and failed IMF interventions, the system suddenly broke. When citizens tried to withdraw their savings and convert them into dollars, banks began to collapse. And one morning the government shut every door. They called it Corralito, which literally means little corral. But for the people, it wasn't a corral, it was a cage. Cash withdrawals were limited to 250 pesos per week. Dollar accounts were forcibly converted into pesos. People's savings evaporated overnight. The entire middle class became poor instantly. That's what happens when banks shut down. Money doesn't vanish. It just becomes almost impossible to access. Basic needs like bread, milk, and rent suddenly turn into luxuries. Then came 2013 Cyprus. In exchange for an EU bailout, the government froze all bank deposits. When people woke up, they found that accounts over 100,000 euros were locked. Overnight, the savings they had built for years were no longer theirs. And once again, it was the ordinary people who suffered most. 2019, Lebanon. After years of corruption and economic decline, the government restricted withdrawals to only a few $100s per month. Since no one could access their money, people began to take matters into their own hands, sometimes even at gunpoint. And every time the result was the same. Your money isn't really yours. It's under their control. Even in the so-called land of freedom, the United States, it happened. In 1933, during the Great Depression, President Roosevelt declared a bank holiday. Every bank in the country shut down for 4 days. No one could access their money. The entire nation held its breath. After 4 days, some banks reopened and the system slowly recovered. But it proved one thing. Even the most powerful country in the world can freeze its banking system to prevent collapse. All of this shows us a simple truth. The money you think you have in the bank isn't actually in the vault. Banks operate under a fractional reserve system. Only a small portion of deposits exist physically. The rest is lent out, invested, or circulating elsewhere. So if everyone tries to withdraw their cash at once, the game is over. The system collapses. And when that happens, governments protect the banks, not the people. The bill always ends up in the hands of the public. Now imagine this happens tomorrow in your country. How long could your cash last? When cards stop working, how would you survive? How would you feed your family? This isn't paranoia or a movie script. It's an uncomfortable but necessary realization. When the system is under stress, banks protect themselves first. The fractional reserve model is clever, but extremely fragile. Banks don't keep your money in vaults. They put it back into circulation to grow and profit. That fuels economic growth, yes, but it's also a game. If one day everyone says, "I want my money in cash," that money simply isn't there. That's why trust is the foundation of the entire system. People assume the doors will never close, and that's how the illusion continues. But once panic sets in, bank runs begin. Governments know this well. That's why, in a crisis, the first thing they rescue is the banks. Because if the system collapses, everything else follows. When banks stop, the economy freezes. Salaries aren't paid, payments fail, supply chains break. In Lebanon, factories stopped production. In Greece, people waited for hours in the summer heat just to withdraw 50 euros. Weddings were canceled, surgeries postponed, children pulled from school. Because access to money had become a privilege. The digital age has only deepened this dependency. If servers crash, the system halts, or your account is frozen. Your wealth becomes nothing more than a string of numbers. This is one of the modern world's greatest fears. Imagine the domino effect if it happens again. Factories can't pay wages. Layoffs begin. Markets can't pay suppliers. Shelves go empty. Governments try to calm the situation, but patience runs out. A technical issue becomes a social crisis, and when people lose hope, they start bartering, hoarding, or worse, reaching for weapons instead of laws. This isn't a theory, it's reality, and it can happen again. Because banks aren't just financial institutions, they're the veins of the economy. And when those veins clog, blood stops flowing, and everything slowly dies. So what should we learn from all this? The world today is buried under enormous debt, fragile systems, and rising geopolitical risks. But the solution isn't panic, or stuffing all your cash under a mattress. The real solution is diversification. Diversity is survival. Holding your wealth in different forms and institutions makes all the difference. True wealth isn't just what you own, but what you can access when you need it. Gold, real estate, cash, alternative assets. These aren't old-fashioned, they're lifelines. You have to distinguish between owning and accessing. If your wealth depends solely on one institution's mercy, then it's not truly yours. When the day comes and someone asks, "What if the banks close?" That won't be the real question. The real question will be, the banks are closed, so what now? And if we don't understand this today, we'll find ourselves trapped in the same cycle again. If you enjoy videos like this, subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.